You're listening to the Appleton REIA podcast, a podcast dedicated to understanding the latest tips, tricks, and techniques to be successful in today's market of real estate investing. Appleton REIA podcast. Get ready. Here's the next episode.
Hello once again, people. My name is Dan Allmore. Jacci Conklin. We are ready for another awesome Appleton REIA podcast.
I'm ready. You ready?
I am born ready. Let's do it. Today we're going to get right after it, guys, because, if you've been watching the news, which I try not to,
right,
because it can be pretty negative at the end of the day. But, you can't also put your head in the sand and just go on living life, because you have to understand what's going on in the world today. So we want to spend a little bit of time talking about the state of the market. And let us be clear that, we know what we know. We're in the market, but there are a lot of varying opinions on this. But we're going to try to bring some facts, some figures, and at least try to help educate you of, what does this mean for you as a real estate investor with the things that we're seeing and the things that we're planning for even in our businesses, right?
You have to.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and then really ultimately how you can prepare, if the market does change. We can talk about what the state of the market is today. We'll talk about what we maybe think the market's going to do. Again, we have no crystal ball, right? But we can at least try to give you guys some knowledge. And that's the whole point of this podcast, is to give you guys tools, tips, tricks to be more effective real estate investors. And we wouldn't be doing you a service if we didn't talk about current events and things that could affect our market, right?
Yeah. Well, we like to do that about once a year.
Absolutely.
So, just share a little information and kind of our perspective, and then you guys can take it with a grain of salt and whatever else you want to take it with.
Absolutely. And again, I can't stress enough, though. I mean, as it's good to be aware of current events, it sometimes can suck in your life because you get just so drawn into what's going on, and this person said that, and this person said this. Be well-rounded. We've talked about this before. Just have other sources, maybe some independent sources along with some mainstream sources, stuff like that you don't maybe can be diversified in your information that you get. And some of the stuff you got to take with a grain of salt, too, because a lot of times there's agendas with some of the articles that are written and or
absolutely.
Broadcast.
Always look at the source.
Yes.
Always look at the source. Who is telling me this, and what's in it for them to tell me what they're telling me?
Right.
Yeah. Are they just reporting, or do they got a backside to it?
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah. A lot of times the reporting turns out to be more of a commentary than it actually is a report, or they have a bent behind what they're trying to say. And that's on both sides of the lane. All right, so let's talk a little about current events. This is fact stuff that's going on right now. We know there's a lot of unrest in the world, right?
Tons.
I mean, we know what's going on in Ukraine. There's other countries in which, there's unrest. A lot of this could be just the upheaval of just people getting over the whole COVID thing, and that still kind of lingers around. So there's still just this uncertainty in the world and also in the financial markets.
Right, because it pushes a lot of other things to be happening.
Right.
The stock market, it is affected by what's happening in the rest of the world, and we have we just heard that the ruble is now being based on gold, and we know that for years, you and I anyways, on some of the back channels, not the mainstream media, but they've been talking about having that for a long time,
Absolutely.
going to digital currency, being backed by silver and gold, which could be a wonderful thing, but the Federal Reserve likes to.
And the dollar, right now is just based on faith, right? It's not based, it used to be back in the day, and that was back I think 70s, early 70s.
Yes.
Yeah, I think is when Nixon took us off the gold standard, which ultimately our money was backed by a gold bar or a tangible item. But now you see on every dollar bill we have, it's a Federal Reserve note.
Yeah.
So it's actually
promise.
Yeah, it's and some people would call it maybe a fiat type currency. It's just not backed by anything tangible. It's by faith. Now, the good thing for the U.S. dollar is that as of today, it is the business commerce, right? People use dollars to transact. So
as of today,
but if you see more countries like Russia and other countries that want to do their own thing, back their money by metals, which it was initially when money was created, paper money. It was just easier than carrying a sack full of gold and silver, right? Yeah. You had a piece of a dollar that you could trade in that gives you equitable metal that has true value. We could see the value of today's dollar shrink. And we're already seeing that with inflation, right?
We're seeing that. And then now they're talking about, like you and I were talking about before we started here, paying people extra for the gas, right? Because the gas prices are high, we'll give you each an extra $400. And it's like, well, where does that come from, right?
Correct.
You hear about the debt ceiling and everything just being more and more. Well, what they do is they print more and more of these treasury notes or dollars, the fiat currency. They just print more. They make more, so each one is worth less. And,
correct.
And therein lies inflation and interest and everything else. So again, just being aware of that makes you a really good business person. Makes you a really good investor, makes you a really good trader, because having that information and then gathering all that you can, making your own deductions based on the information that you gather from different sources that you trust, or that you could at least take, again, with the grain of salt, and decide for yourself, okay, I'm watching something change or I'm seeing something, and I told myself that when this happens, then I'm going to shift here. I'm going to pivot there. And you need to know, if you have that plan ahead of time, then it's no big deal. You're like, oh, okay, well, interest rates just went to this. Well, in my plan that I laid out for myself, I said when this happens, then I'm going to pivot over here and I'm going to do that. When you have that plan, the stress is gone. But when you get caught with your pants down and you finally realize that interest rates went up, but you haven't been watching it, and you're a month in, like, you know, the whole way that you win a basketball game is to go where the ball is going to be, you know, or football or whatever ball game you want to play, right? You're supposed to be where the ball is going to be, not where it currently is. And so you want to have that plan to shift when you start seeing the signs that tell you you need to shift. And so that you can be there when the ball is there rather than being a last after
and
the
I think
thought.
that all predicates on what we're talking about now, is that we're seeing indicators in our market from the economy, the inflation, interest rates. The Fed just increased interest rates, which was the first time since 2019 that happens. And that has a domino effect on just most lending institutions. So what you will see is people who are able to buy won't be able to buy anymore because it's not affordable.
That payment went up.
But then it also gets even higher because the cost of living is higher. So the less expendable income that they would have used to buy a property is not there.
Food's more, gas is more, everything's more.
And you could see financial institutions also start tightening their guidelines of who they lend to, right?
Where they have been very loose.
They have been of recent.
Flush it with cash.
Right. And that's why we've seen the market we have been. I mean, demand has been high, inventory's been low. But now we're beginning to see that needle where it was pegging super high on the one side. We're kind of seeing that ease off a little bit.
A little more inventory.
Right. In our own market, we're seeing, more inventory, right? More days on market.
Longer days on market, little higher interest rate. You start to so the whole point is that if you're going to be in this game, you need to be very good at your game. How about that? So be a business person. Do not take this as a hobby. Watch what's happening in current events. Don't stress out about it, but have a plan and say when this happens, because let me tell you, every time there's a change, there's an opportunity.
100%.
Every time.
Right.
You know, people found out that we were getting into this real estate thing back in 2007. They're like, are you crazy? Everything's coming down, you know, and then 2008 and everybody, you know, all my friends and family were like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, when everybody else is going south, I want to go north, right? I want to go against the grain. So where there is something bad happening, you have to know where's the opportunity and how can I be in front of it first. So that's the point. That's what we're talking about today, is start really paying attention to the quality podcast, reading the right newsletters. Don't just get your news from the TV, please. Not just the mainstream media. You got to go out and search for the quality reporting that's absolutely just giving you with no agenda. And giving you the real...
Well, yeah, I think that's part of it. So here's the benefits. And you know, Jack, we talked about this too. I mean, what we're talking about here is not to be a gloom and doom thing.
Not at all.
We're not trying to, like, get you discouraged and like, oh, the world sucks. And
this is exciting stuff.
It is exciting stuff. But here's the beauty of it, is that with real estate, it's by far still one of the best things to invest in.
What's better?
Because people need places to live, right?
No matter what, we all need a place to live. Whether we're a renter or an owner. What is there? Otherwise, there's a homeless shelter or the street. Right. I mean, everybody who's not homeless is a renter or an owner. Right. We all have a property to live in, one way or another. So real estate's not going away. That's one of the basic human needs. Absolutely. We got air, water, and shelter. Right.
And what we may find is the rules of engagement, or how real estate is transacted, or how you can even use real estate, that could change. You know, we have a lot of freedom and liberties in the real estate market today, but if government regulation comes in, they could constrict, right, of like what you could charge for rent. And in some markets, they do that. Or you know, you can only sell a home for X amount or Y, Z, whatever. And there's some of that even now, even with some of the lending guidelines of like what you can and can't do. So there's elements of that already, but you could just see that become more robust. So further to that, you just have to be aware of what's going on. understand your local real estate market.
Yep.
In our market here in the Midwest in Appleton, I mean, we're not an indicator market.
No.
A lot of times
we're not.
We trail in what other markets do, right? So we can kind of maybe
see. We're pretty robust.
Yes.
We do well here.
We do well. And even when the market sucked back in 08 and 09 and 10, 11, those years, the market just kind of was soft. It wasn't, the bottom did not fall out by any means.
We didn't get hit as hard, but it was the lending that was tough.
Right.
It was the lending that affected anything. If it weren't for the tougher lending guidelines, a lot of what happened wouldn't have hit us even as much as it did.
Right.
We did have higher foreclosures. And
sure.
So let's just talk about that for a second because we're hearing different things, right? Yeah. Depending on who you listen to. People are saying, we thought there was going to be a bunch of foreclosures. And the case is that there's not. I know for us here, we're just not really seeing
there's
it.
Not a lot. And the banks aren't really wanting to foreclose because they know right now because the market's so good, they literally can take a property that's not in great condition. We have one just recently. We were working with a bank and they're like, you know what? Here's our number. We're not going to waver from this.
Yeah.
We were trying to work a short sale, and they're like, we'd rather just list it. And they may well get it, but that's that's their attitude right now because they're playing that end of the market too, right? So that's their position today. Now that could change.
And that's the point of watching.
Right.
Like you start to see some of those foreclosures starting to hit the docket, right? Mm-hmm. Now oops, it might be time to start shifting.
Right.
Or maybe the banks are going to start to be a little bit more open to some short sales and stuff like that. I mean, I read something just last week about a lot of people are still in forbearance agreements, they're not even done with that. So as those things start to expire or come around, they could turn into, who knows, if the market shifts and the forbearance agreements come due, that's when we could start seeing those opportunities to pick up some pre-foreclosures or start seeing some things hit the
and all these things are indicators of the stuff we're talking about now. So when we're talking about, what's going on in the world, what's going on with the economy, these sometimes can be indicators that lead to where we are, as of today, where that meter is and that being a buyer or seller's market, where it was pinging being a seller's market for so long.
Yep.
The reality is it's probably, starting to alleviate now and go more towards that buyer's market. So what are you going to do? Do you have, to your point earlier, Jackie, do you have a plan in place?
Yeah.
Because naturally we have this cyclical nature with real estate. It's
always
up and down. So
it's nothing new, Dan.
No, it's nothing new. It's absolutely nothing new. It's new to some people who are just into real estate.
Yep.
And then you have a once in a, millennial abnormality back in 2008 when just the perfect storm happened, right? That's will probably never ever happen again, more than likely. But all I'm saying is knowing that there is a cyclical nature to what we do, how are you planning for? What's your plan? Because what you're doing today may not work 6 months from now.
Because 6 months ago or a year ago, people were saying, well, I'll buy. It's more than I want to spend. But by the time I'm done renovating, the market's going to go up another 10% because that was happening.
Correct.
But here's the thing. If you continue to play on that scale and then it doesn't go up or it even slides back a little bit.
Right, depending on your market. Sure.
You're in trouble.
Absolutely.
So you got to buy with today dollars. You can't think about the future going up. It might, and then you win. Right? That's gravy.
Yep.
But you got to stick with your meat and potatoes. Yeah. You can't count on that gravy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where people got hurt in 07 and 8 too, because in 04 and 05 and 06 and, even into 7, they were still buying with that whole, everything's just going up so much faster. Right. And they all the people that are alive at that time, which are still mostly alive, but all the people playing in that game at the time had never seen ever real estate prices go backwards. So they could only go forward. You can't get hurt. But you have to know that anomalies do happen and things can happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could go backwards again. We don't know. We still don't have that crystal ball. Do we think it will? No.
Right.
But it happened once.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think
you got to plan.
You have to know about that. So it's like, how you acquiring properties, that strategy could change a little bit, right? You may have to look about some different ways of going about it. Or, maybe how you're offering on properties. Are you just offering cash offers? Well, maybe you want to start understanding how to do effective terms plays, because as we switch into now a buyer's market, there's going to be people who can't sell their home but need to sell for a myriad of reasons we've talked about.
The sellers become more motivated.
Right. So they're willing to be creative.
Yes.
And if you can provide a solution, we've talked about that, serve first, right? So give them a solution that works for them and works for you. Yeah. This is where you can be a phenomenal resource.
Well, let's whisper some of those opportunities that could come out of a buyer's market.
Right.
Because when those sellers can't just throw it FISBO and they get 40 offers and sell it for $20,000 more than it would ever be worth.
Right.
And they have to start winning a buyer because there's more sellers than buyers at that point in a buyer's market. Yes, I got that right. Just think about the opportunities. If interest rates go up, I mean, they're still stupid low. I mean, let's say, sure. I mean, in 2007, we were excited about 7 and 8% interest, and it was gobbing cheap, right?
For sure it was.
So, hopping up to 4s and 5s is nothing to write home about.
Right.
But if they do start creeping back up and we see a 7%, an 8%, a 10%, I mean, back in the 80s, people were paying double digits
all day.
Yeah,
all day.
And so, I mean, 20% interest on your mortgage, you're going to think twice. You're going to really love that house.
That's like a credit card for your mortgage. Think about that.
That's nuts.
That is nuts.
So when those things start to happen, here's how you get excited about that shift. You have your plan in place saying, I am seeing these indicators once you start seeing them, and you say, I'm going to learn how to really get good at negotiating a subject to deal because I can take their mortgage subject to the 3% loan that they have when everybody else is paying 8%. Then I can put a renter in there and I can just make money all day long.
Absolutely.
And I'm serving and helping this seller, and it's just this big whirlwind of a win-win.
Everyone wins.
That's what we're talking about, making these plans so that you can continue to win and not hurt anyone else.
Correct.
You can also learn about seller financing a little bit better. You can maybe partner and learn more with joint venturing with people who aren't making the returns that they want to make or whatever. And they buy the house and you rent it out. And I mean, think about all the different ways that you can structure your business no matter what the market is so that everyone around you wins.
Yeah.
You don't have to lose just because the market shifts.
And the other thing too, I would say, is build your wealth lines. And what I mean by that is find people who have money that maybe, I mean, let's be honest, the stock market isn't a sure thing. And there's a lot of people that
especially now,
the uncertainty. And even if you look at, the crypto world and stuff like that, there's the pump and dump where some of these coins become all the rage and then they dump out, So it's like, it sounds cool and fun, but if you don't know how to invest in it, you can lose it. Real estate's still one of the most safest ways you can have your money in something that can make and generate wealth. So have conversations with friends, family, other individuals, just saying, listen, here's how I buy properties. Would you like to know about that if I had an opportunity? Because if the commercial lending, which right now is pretty fluid, does dry up, and you don't have those avenues, having investors like that or people that they win because they get a great return on their money. You win because you have liquidity of cash to make a deal. So when these other people are in the banks and they can't buy and they're not buying anymore, guess what? You can come in quickly and close a deal that they can't. So if you're doing these things and setting this stuff up today, that when the market starts shifting, you're already kind of watching the ball roll a certain direction and you can roll with it versus, like the Indiana Jones thing when it feels like you're going to get destroyed by the ball.
Right.
You're kind of chasing after it with joy, like, all right, I'm ready for the ride.
Trying to catch it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our whole point. The state of the market, we don't actually have the answers of where are we going because, again, without the crystal ball, things are so changing every week. It's so hard to really say exactly what's happening. Our point this year in our state of the market is make plans and be ready to take on the opportunity no matter what happens, but know ahead of time how you are planning to pivot. Because if you have that plan, it's very difficult to get hurt.
Right.
Be careful in how you buy because you don't make money when you sell.
Right.
You always make the money when you buy, and that 100%. Is one of the oldest cliches.
That is rule number one in real estate investing.
So you have to just have your own hypothesis of what your next 6 months looks like, right, in the market. I mean, you don't have to know what next year looks like. You just have to know what the next, 6 months, really.
Sure,
I mean, what does it look like things are going to happen so that you can be in front of that curve, be where the ball is going so that you can catch it and you can take it down the court because that's all you can do right now.
And what a great way to do that, honestly, is to get tied in through like a local real estate investment club. Obviously, 100%. We're the Appleton REIA. If you guys are local and in the area, we'd love to have you come out. It's the third Thursday of every month. You can come, check it out. First meeting's absolutely free, but I can guarantee you this. You come, you're going to find so much value that you'll want to become a member because there's not only local vendors that can save you a ton of money, there's national vendors, and then just the camaraderie of just really an environment that is welcoming. Doesn't matter if you're a seasoned investor or someone brand new. Everyone gets welcomed with open arms, and we want to, I guess we are from a an abundance mentality, Jackie.
Absolutely.
We want to serve everyone and then help everyone else grow with us, right? Yeah. That's the idea behind this club, and it has always been the heart of the club for sure. So AppletonREIA.com. You can check it out, find out the upcoming events. There's going to be some cool speakers that are on the horizon that you're definitely going to not want to miss out. But at a bare minimum, from what we're talking about today, you get to network with local investors and find out what's going on in their world.
Yeah. And what's really cool is we have really ramped up and gotten kind of this awesome group of people from all different realms of real estate. It's not like just the flippers and the wholesalers, but we've got the long-term renters, we've got the commercial owners, we've got the apartment buildings, we've got short-term and Airbnb and self-storage and builders, and I mean, wow, what a group, right?
It's very diverse. So no matter what you're looking to do,
going.
And you're going to glean so much just coming and being a part of that. And then, of course, not only for the meeting, but if you can stick around afterwards, we have some beverages and talk and really just have a good time of networking. And that's really where a lot of business is done, quite honestly, the after meeting. So if you have a chance to check it out, third Thursday of every month, AppletonREIA.com, you can sign and get your free guest pass today. So if you want to take action by signing up and coming to a meeting, right? Yeah. We always talk about you got to take action in real estate. That's the first step. Come to a meeting, right? Get yourself educated. And we'd love to see you there. So cool, guys. Hopefully this helped you out. Give you an idea of, again, we don't have a crystal ball, but at least give you some knowledge, a little bit of how you can be prepared to have a plan, I guess is the big thing. Be ready for a shift. It will happen eventually. We just don't know when, right? So until we talk next time, guys, thank you so much. You've been listening to the Appleton REIA podcast. I'm Dan. She's Jackie. See ya.
You've been listening to the Appleton REIA podcast. For more information and other episodes, visit us at AppletonREIA.com.